This summer, I did a book study with some Kairos people, including our Janet Gray, of a beautiful book I heartily recommend by Robin Kimmerer called Braiding Sweetgrass. And it is a magnificent invitation into her stories. She is a botanist and learns how to speak botany at university through several graduate degrees. But connecting with her First Nations experience and history, at least in the Northeast Estates, she begins to speak the language of the world around her. And it is an amazing, beautiful story. And I'm not going to ruin the book for you, but to say that it is a game being offered by Kairos as a book study in a few weeks, and we'll find out more information for you. Robin starts her study, her invitation to us, her section of stories with the story of Sky Woman, which is one of the best known creation stories in the First Nations. And it's about the Sky Woman and the creation of Turtle Island. And it's told in different ways, in different parts, and through different nations. The picture you see right now is also a creation story by Bill Reed, and that is at the Museum of Anthropology on the UBC campus. It is a creation story. There are many. We want to remember there are many creation stories in our Bible too. The one that David read, the paraphrase by Eugene Peterson of the opening verses of Genesis, is followed immediately by a very different creation story. You remember Adam and Eve. But did you know there were other creation stories sprinkled through the Old Testament? And last week, we heard St. John's creation. Again, a very different story. And so we are supported and resourced by all sorts of different creation stories. And Robin introduces us to the Sky Woman. The Kairos program called Take a Sacred Pause includes the work, the beautiful writings from G.C. Tanywook, who is professor in Orono University in Maine and very involved in the TRC and other things here in Canada and in the States. I wanted to share a little bit about what he was sharing with us about First Nations spirituality and those who are trying to deal with the climate crises of our time. You remember the 1980s poster many of us had that was supposedly a speech by Chief Seattle in 1854. Did you have that about the sacred web of life? It's not authentic, and it's not sold probably much anymore. He's remembered by the name Stilth rather than Chief Seattle, which is some terrible bastardization of his real name. But he did teach about the interconnected web of life. And we are reminded of that precious web that said you can't hurt one part of the web without hurting it all. Interconnecting threads. Our sense of the sacred is very interconnected. And as we listen and learn from our First Nation elders and the voices coming to us now from both Canada and the States and Australia and so many wonderful places, we see that the sensibility of the interconnectedness of all creation, visible and invisible, is going to give us a chance at refocusing ourselves, finding new energy for a long fight for survival. And the energy will give us balance, which is something we so desperately need. As we recall that we are always interdependent, then we will be able to achieve and resource ourselves. Imagine a spirituality that's related to nature. Well, we talked about it last week. The picture you're seeing right now is of a totem pole that's in a private collection that was carved right here in this sanctuary many years ago. But it's again the importance of creation and artistry, maintaining that deep interconnectedness of respect and expression there with the Haida. So Gisi Tanuk taught us and reminds us how important it is to see Manitou, or God, in everything in creation, from everything from this earth on which we live to the cosmos in which it is placed, to view and to hold that all life, all living sentient beings deserve respect. Manitou teaches that human beings are part of creation, not its crowning glory, but we are part of the great web of life. Between the cosmos above and the cosmos within ourselves, within the hugest macrocosm to the smallest microcosm, it is all one web of life, and we are all interconnected. I would encourage you to look him up on YouTube and see his TED Talk, which he gave when he was still in Maine. How we can then learn, what we can absorb, resonate, and put into practice. Because we aren't, all of us, First Nations. Last week we talked about the Celtic vision, and we know we are not all of us Celtic. But each one of these philosophies, each one of these spiritualities has much to offer us, and offers it to us that we might partake. And so the First Nations invite us to remember that earth, the very earth, is alive and deserving of our respect. The mountains, the seas, all of us, the Haida images that are so familiar to us, call us to a deeper relationship with what we have been inherited. And so Kairos has a study out right now called Take a Sacred Pause. And it's an invitation for us to sense, appreciate, connect, respect, express, and delight. Sacred. And so, of course, it is the 4 directions, the 4 different ways of knowing that we'll take into that S, that sense. The 4 directions, all that comes to us in our life, in the different times of our life. What do you bring to seeing an early flower or hearing a voice, even through Zoom? We sense that connection. We allow our hearts to open. And then the A in sacred, we appreciate what we are feeling. We appreciate our attention and are encouraged to slow down, to leave our old judgments behind, and with open hearts look at what we're sensing, to appreciate it just for what it is, not for what it can do for us or what we need to do for it, but just to acknowledge this gift of the Creator, this gift of creation, and to speak our appreciation out loud. Maybe it will be through drumming. Maybe we'll speak our appreciation in song. Maybe we'll whistle in the elevator. Life begins in the Spirit and returns in the Spirit, and so we're encouraged to express that appreciation. The C in sacred in this study is to ask us to connect. These beautiful images that we're seeing now during this reflection time, what connects for you? Or is there a story, a creation story in your family, in your traditions? What do you connect to as you think of the stories that matter the most, or the pictures that matter the most in your heart? On what are you depending? Who depends on you? What is your interconnection? Many of us have discovered through COVID a tremendous interconnection that we had never imagined. What will become of the things we treasure? We see now a bison herd strong again after many years of peril. What else will we be able to gift to the world of 100 years from now because we have connected with it deeply and appreciated it? That gift into the future comes from taking this sacred pause. The R in sacred comes from a very difficult thing, which is asking us to respect. Respect things we don't know, respect things we don't necessarily fully understand. Respect the impact our actions have had on creation. Respect and slow down as we think about that. How do we show respect? How do we honor our connections to the things that matter most? We see there in the picture a smudge. What are the actions that you take, as others may take smudges, that are actions that you respect of looking after yourself and creation? It might be lighting a candle. It might be incense or even just a perfume. What are the things that connect you to that deep, lived relationship with creation? Things that you would work maybe to honor, perhaps a park. Express, of course, is the invitation for us, and that's not necessarily words. It's that deeper expression, lived expression. It may be song, or it may just be inarticulate gratitude, expressing that sacredness, that respect, that connection. The D in sacred stands for delight. How good creation is. I cannot come here and speak to you as if I had a First Nations background, because clearly I don't. But I have an abiding appreciation and respect for what we are learning, and a deep regret for what we failed to learn before. How we learned from the First Nations of our impact. How we learned working together through the TRC, how we can stand up rather than stand by. Now we've gathered together in this opportunity to express our appreciation, our love for creation, and to be in relationship together. And so it is for us the beginning or the continuation of the creation stories all around us as we learn how they echo and resonance together. And then we're invited to stop. And before we plow on and doing anything else, to take a sacred pause and to learn from that great gift of the First Nations spirituality that humanity is not all there is. It's not just a collectivity of nations that we are part of, but we are part of a collectivity of mountains here on the coast, and water not far from where we are today, and of course trees and fish and mammals and birds, and little tiny stars twinkling millions of light years away. To love creation is to acknowledge Creator, God, with whatever name you know. Perhaps it is Manitou. Perhaps it is Yahweh. All life beneath our feet, all life above our heads, must stand in balance, and we are invited to take a sacred pause to be in balance too. And then we can turn in honest, open-hearted dialogue about steps to come. Amen.